In John Urquhart's The Wonders of Prophecy, published around 120 years ago, an astounding look at the miracle of prophecy. And he's been dealing here with Ezekiel's prophecies about Tyre and Sidon, and then No, the ancient Egyptian name for that city that the Greeks call Thebes, where Carnac is, and the colossi that you see so often in Egyptian travel documentaries. What does this all mean in terms of the Bible? He spent 2 pages describing the glories, even of the ruins, that astound all travelers. And what does the Bible have to say about this city of No, or Thebes? These ruins tell another truth besides that of man's greatness, or the vanity of earthly glory. Quote, "Such vast and surprising remains are still to be seen," says Pocock, "of such magnificence and solidity as may convince anyone who beholds them that without some extraordinary accident they must have lasted forever, which seems to have been the intention of the founders of them. Of this extraordinary accident the Scriptures have something quite as extraordinary to say." Urquhart says, in Ezekiel 30, verses 14 to 16, there is mention made of No in each of the 3 verses. The story of her then future is told in these 3 brief sentences. "I will execute judgments in No. I will cut off the multitude of No, and No shall be broken up." "I will execute judgments in No" seems to point to something more than an ordinary tale of siege and capture. Does the after fate of Thebes stand out then as singular on the page of Egyptian history? The judgments were so marked and awful that historians have, unbidden, supplied the answer. Thebes sank beneath 2 of the most terrible blows ever dealt by the hand of man, and both fell after the prediction was uttered. The prophecies of Ezekiel were written in the time of Nebuchadnezzar, and 13 years after his dynasty was overthrown and Chaldea had passed into the hands of the Persians. Cambyses, during his invasion of Egypt around 525 BC, captured Thebes and poured out upon its devoted head the wrath of his insane ferocity. Its majestic temples were consumed with fire, and the power of the victorious host was bent to overthrow or mar its colossal statues. Although the city sprang up again, it never regained its ancient splendor. The hand of an irreversible judgment was laid also upon the sources of its wealth and greatness. It ceased to be Egypt's chief city. The capital was removed in turn to Memphis, Sais, that is Sais, and Alexandria. After the Greek conquest, the streams of commerce by which it had been fed were turned in other directions. Commercial wealth on the accession of the Ptolemies began to flow into other channels. Coptos and Apollinopolis succeeded to the lucrative trade of Arabia, and Ethiopia no longer contributed to the revenues of Thebes. Yet, notwithstanding its long decline, when the second stroke fell, in the beginning of the 1st century preceding the Christian era, Thebes was even then one of the wealthiest cities in the land. The blow was dealt by one of Egypt's own princes, Ptolermy Lathyrus, that's Lathyrus, the grandfather of Cleopatra, about the year 89 BC. And the greatness that still remained to the ancient city can be measured by the fact that for 3 years it defied all the efforts of the besiegers. But the victor exacted a terrible vengeance. It was almost entirely leveled to the ground. The words of the 14th and 15th verses found a complete fulfillment. God had executed judgments in No. Its multitude was cut off and has never returned. It may seem that in dealing with this prophecy we are overstepping the limits we set ourselves when we promise to bring forward only such prophecies as have been fulfilled since the beginning of the Christian era. But if in this instance we had to go beyond our self-imposed boundary, the case is so clear and striking that it would have been difficult to have passed it over in silence. The third part of the prophecy, however, portraying as it does the after and permanent condition of the great city, falls most assuredly within our limits. "And No," the prophet continues, "shall be broken up." Too much stress, it might be thought, should not be laid upon the words, But the student of the fulfilled prophecies of Scripture learns that their words need no screen nor apology, that the very heart of the wonder lies in their complete and minute accomplishment. The prediction finds its interpretation in the event. No was literally broken up. Strabo visited the ruins about 25 BC and found the city, which only 60 years before still retained its majestic unity, divided into many separate villages. As Strabo found it, it has remained ever since, and the ruins are today portioned out between 9 hamlets. Thebes was to endure, but only in fragments. How came the prophet to pen the words, "And no shall be broken up"? In summing up the destiny of Egypt's great and ancient capital, how did it happen that the finger was laid upon this very condition which it has maintained for 20 centuries? Next time, more prophecies about Egypt. The general decline of Egypt is also predicted in Scripture, though it is not to expire, it's not to disappear as had Babylon and Nineveh. I'll put in a link to some videos we did, a series we did examining the 6 references to Babylon the Great in the book of Revelation. I'll put in a link to the first of them dealing with Revelation 17, and also the Babylon the Great playlist, which is much more extensive than those 6 videos. See you next time.